Welcome to the 10 podcast subseries, Personal Brand Equity, brought to you by the Nebraska Tech Collaborative, powered by Aksarben. I'm Shonna Dorsey with the Nebraska Tech Collaborative and intern Any, powered by Aksarben. Here with
Todd Murphy, president of Truescope in North America. We are a media intelligence company headquartered in Australia with offices in New Zealand, Singapore, and headquartered in Omaha, Nebraska for North America.
Very cool. So 10-minute format, just like 10.
Yep. We're going to move fast.
Yep.
This is the last edition of the combination Todd Shonna show on personal brand equity. But I thought we would put a bow on this series by ending it with what I call the obligation of the employer.
Mm-hmm.
So all along, we've been talking about the soft skills that a person who wants to thrive in an industry can develop. They can, pick and choose the ones that they can accomplish. They don't necessarily have to do everything in order to be successful. But hopefully we've been able to share some things, and hopefully you felt that this is valuable.
Yeah.
That employers will recognize in people who adopt some of these personal brand equity building skills.
Yes.
Or those who are building their personal brand equity.
Yes. And because it is so valuable to a company, like if you have an individual who has a strong brand and they come into your organization and they're able to talk about how great it is to work at the organization, or not even necessarily that all of the time, but just kind of amplify your brand through there.
Yeah. And that's a great thing, because I'm going to use that to illustrate a couple mistakes that I see. And I think of it in terms of pre-COVID and post-COVID.
Okay.
One thing the COVID period taught us is employers need to look beyond what they considered the traditional employee. And I actually think it's super easy to do this. The one thing that I often see standing in the way is if a company is using an HR department or hiring practices that are pre-COVID. Nothing sucks the life out of a corporate brand, a culture, an environment of a company than forcing employee candidates, into a lifeless process that doesn't radiate how exciting it might be to work at that company. So that's why I wanted to end with the obligation of the employer. And one thing I said was looking beyond the traditional employee. We have hybrid working environments. Even though I may have a personal preference for somebody to work in the office, I have to make a decision. Do I want the best person for the job, or do I want them in the office next door to me? Any employer has an obligation to their company and the rest of their team to build the best company they can. And if that means allowing some people who are the best person for the job to work from home or work hybrid, or 2 days in the office or whatever, great. That's not a problem. But on the other hand, we also have candidates that are saying, I've worked at home, I need an office environment.
Yep.
And I'm cool to accommodate that as well. So that's one thing. This would be a question for you, Shonna. In your capacity and in all the organizations that you're involved with, and the training and skills building that you do, what are you seeing as in terms of people wanting to work in an office environment or at home? Are there any one or two takeaways you're seeing there currently?
Yes. And I do want to clarify, we have our partners do a lot of training. We're the convener, collaborator, et cetera, which is an awesome space to be in. But what I've seen from many of our partners is that they're wanting to be flexible, because to your point, hiring and retaining the best talent is the most important work that they have to do. But it is challenging, because I remember, I know we're not trying to go super deep on this, but pre-COVID, everyone in the office for the most part, and during 100% remote, posts, it's some mix.
Right.
But I think we're still on the journey to figure out what the long term will look like. I think we're all trying to figure it out.
And one thing I think that we won't ever be able to overcome is we're dealing with people. And people have what I call internal characteristics that are human nature. Some people are extroverts, some are introverts. We've talked about that in a prior episode. But there are some hardwired things that you can't escape. So in the end, my sense is a hybrid model can work. Anyone can make a hybrid model work. And depending on the job, if you're a customer service representative, you might be able to do that successfully all from home. But people need interaction to some degree, even an introvert, whether they need mentorship or training or a person that they trust that they can go to with questions. That's not going to change whether you're at home or in the office. And employers, another obligation is to be able to provide that platform.
Right.
So I'll move on to another problem I see. Employers need to be involved. Let me rephrase that. The executives of a company need to be involved in the hiring practice. When you abdicate that only to a hiring manager or an HR department, you may have people in those departments, either using old strategies and tactics for hiring, which takes the culture out of it, or not selling your company well enough. So one thing I try to do is I always have a 15 to 20 minute introductory call with any candidate that we think might be right for an interview. One thing I want the candidate to know is, who am I? What's my personality? What's my executive style? What's my leadership style? What's the type of business culture I advocate for on our team? Because if they don't like me, they're going to hate working for my company. So on the one hand, you have an employee candidate who's trying to sell their personal brand equity to me. They're trying to demonstrate their value to me. I'm also trying to offer them an opportunity and sell them on how great this opportunity could be. Again, I got to be authentic and I have to be transparent.
Right.
We talked about being honest and direct in a prior episode. I don't want to mislead. The last thing I want to do is sell you on a vision of my company that's not real.
Right.
Executives can do that the best. Whether you're the CEO, and if the CEO doesn't have time, get a top level manager to do that, because we really need to be selling. It's a tight market. The unemployment rate is low.
Yeah.
And if you want to get the people who have these personal brand equity skills and value that we've talked about, people who want to thrive in a position, employers have to be involved with the hiring, not just HR.
I like that. And so I know you mentioned too, like busy executives in general. So for a company that does a lot of hiring, what would you propose for the strategy there?
Find a level of manager, find as many people as you can. And I got to tell you, whether it's healthcare, banking, transportation, every company has a few people who have 15 to 20 minutes.
True.
Now, they can't do 10 of those a day, but if you can develop a pool, and these are, this is my suggestion. You don't need to do that, but I know people who have applied for jobs with companies that are partners with the Nebraska Tech Collaborative. Some of them haven't updated their hiring practices, and they're losing the best candidates out there. Great companies, if you can get past the soul-sucking HR practice that makes you want to hate that company and run out to the next opportunity.
Okay.
Now, I may have I didn't exaggerate. I may have been over dramatic there, but we have great companies that haven't updated their hiring practices.
Gotcha.
You got to do that.
Part of that company's personality, personal brand.
Yeah.
Right?
If you get beyond HR, it's a great company. But too many people get stuck in that HR department. They're like, wow, I don't know if I want to work here.
Gotcha.
So executives, the obligation of the executive, the CEO, the president, we have to look at how we're hiring, and we have to look for that non-traditional. It's not, one thing I'm not looking at now is, how many years did you work in those positions? I'm not looking at resumes with a traditional eye. What I'm looking for is, what are your skills and what's your personal brand equity? Are you interested in my company? Did you show up to the interview knowing anything about what we do? Awesome. That's a person that I want to talk to more.
Right.
Even if on paper you don't look ideal, I need to look past that and see, are you a person who wants to thrive in your career? That's a person that I want on my team.
Yep. I love it. Okay.
So it's not all about personal brand equity. The employers have an obligation too, and we have to look for the people that want to thrive.
I love it. Okay, so what could the ask be for this final episode?
I think if people want to leave in the comments what they if they want to go out on a limb and simply say, I would like to thrive in this industry,
Mm-hmm.
people are following the Nebraska Tech Collaborative.
Mm-hmm.
You have a following. I have a smaller following, but I have a following.
We all have a following.
People will see John Smith, Susan Smith want to thrive in a certain industry. The potential for an employer to see that goes up exponentially if they leave a comment on this post.
Okay.
So I think that would be a good ask is, who you are, what industry would you like to thrive in? It could be unrelated to what you're doing now, but I'd like to see that.
Okay.
I've got positions I need to fill.
Awesome.
But hey, Shonna, thanks. This has been fun.
This has been fun. Thanks for doing this with me. We'll come up with another one.
Awesome.